Brendan Schaub and Nate Diaz are having a verbal war.
That's social media. This isn't real. Because here's what's real. I will fuck you up. 365 days a year, I will snap his fucking neck.
It's a side of Schaub that we have never seen. And this all started when Nate mocked Brendan Schaub for getting emotional about a fellow fighter suffering from CTE.
I face serious challenges in meeting basic everyday expenses for food, shelter.
But interestingly enough, their drama dates all the way back to 2017. Now, Schaub is calling Nate Diaz out for a grappling match, and the MMA community desperately wants to see what would happen if the two actually went toe-to-toe. I'm sure no one had Nate Diaz versus Brendan Schaub on their 2024 bingo card, but here we are. So, just how did this unexpected rivalry happen, and what made the future realistically hold? While most MMA fans would have only seen the recent outbursts from Schaub, the two actually had a face-to-face run-in many years back.
So I see him by himself on his phone, and I go up and go, brother, we did good tonight, man. Hopefully you get that next huge fight, biggest pay-per-view of all time in the UFC. Being cool, you know me, I'm... What?
Yeah, of course. Plus you like him.
Yeah, I like him. He looks up and he goes, oh, hell no. You must feel like a fucking dumbass. And I'm kind of caught off. I'm like, excuse me? He's like, are you talking all that shit about Conor? I'm like, whoa, stop. All that shit. I work for Showtime, man. I'm here to represent MMA.
It was in the immediate aftermath of Conor McGregor versus Floyd Mayweather, where Schaub and Diaz ran into each other backstage. Everything seemed cordial until Brendan suggested that McGregor had won numerous rounds against Mayweather, which was not only a moral win for MMA, but for Diaz also. Nate kind of disagreed though. Schaub claimed that Nate should actually praise Conor's performance, as it would only make him look better considering their two previous fights and help promote a potential trilogy between them.
I was going to say, hey, Conor obviously lost, but I don't think you celebrate his failure. I think you celebrate the fact that he won rounds against the best of all time, and it shows how good of a striker you are, because you outboxed Conor in the octagon. So what you should sell is Conor won rounds against Floyd. I'm going to be able to finish Conor better than Floyd did and faster, and then give your list of reasons. That's my plan of action.
But clearly, Nate wasn't in the mood for advice on how to promote a fight and ended up getting aggressive. And while that was supposedly the end of that situation, that was the seed for what we're seeing now. Brendan had no issue with Nate from there on out, but evidently, Diaz held on to that grudge like the Diaz brothers do. Because 7 years on, Nate had another pop at Brendan for no reason whatsoever. It all started after Brendan Schaub reacted to the news that his friend, former training partner, and former interim heavyweight champ Shane Carwin was suffering from CTE.
Because of the way that we trained, because we were meatheads, we didn't know. You know, even the coaches, we'd spar twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week, like all out wars. And because of that, Shane, he can't even keep a job, dude.
It's that bad right now?
Yeah, he went from being a engineer, to he can't be a bouncer at a fucking bar. There's not enough money in the world. If you ask Shane Carwin if he could do it again, if you give him $1 billion, Shane's really bad. Despite having a degree in engineering from Colorado School of Mines, I've been unable to maintain adequate focus to hold down my engineering job. I face serious challenging meeting basic.
Damn.
Former world champ. I face serious challenges in meeting basic everyday expenses for food, shelter.
Carwin's statement was just one of many ex-UFC fighters experiencing both or either financial issues plus CTE from the damage sustained throughout their MMA career as a part of a fighter versus UFC antitrust lawsuit. And while the majority of the MMA community sympathized with Schaub's emotional reaction and the former UFC fighters unable to get jobs and earn money due to their CTE, Nate Diaz did not. He took to Twitter and mocked Schaub with no provocation whatsoever. But Schaub, who usually is diplomatic, said set up a grappling match and he'd snap Nate Diaz's neck. Now Diaz is known for being a great grappler, but MMA fans often forget Brendan Schaub was a top 10 UFC heavyweight and a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Nate responded by tweeting, "I think you'd be surprised," a reference to the time Joe Rogan brutally but kindly warned Brendan Schaub he wouldn't be able to compete with the top guys like Cain Velasquez at the time. At this point, it was a pretty strong back and forth. However, nothing too crazy. But things would soon escalate, and when they did, it got nasty. Seemingly out of nowhere, Schaub took to his show and went on a huge rant about how he'd smash Nate Diaz in a fight, mocked his 209 Stockton persona, and so much more.
End of the day, if he walked in right now, I said, Chin, Case, can you guys leave? Only one of us is gonna walk out unscathed, and it's me. Every fucking day of the week, 365 days a year, I will snap his fucking neck. I know. What's his fucking area code? 209? I know, 209. I get all that. Very cool. None of that is real. Oh, but he did great against Donald Cerrone. Did you see him? Leon Edwards. Dude, he's had some great fights. Tough dude. I don't give a fuck. I'm 245 pounds, trained black belt, top 10 UFC heavyweight in the world at one point. I'm not out of shape. I'm a fucking beast when it comes down to, I know, I tell jokes, I do crazy shit, I made some mistakes. Oh, he got knocked out by Nogueira. Oh, he's into trucks. I get all that. Firing the kids, silly dude. I get all that.
The angry, passionate speech went on for almost 10 minutes. It was a side of Brendan the MMA community had probably never seen before.
I'm not this fake gangster. I don't go looking for fights. I know I'm tough. I don't have to get on Twitter and blast it out and prove it every day because I'm insecure because whatever shit he has going on with his childhood trauma. I don't have to do that. At the end of the day, I will twist your fucking neck off. Ask your boys. There's many of guys that you fucks with, that I've rolled with. Ask them how it went. Go ahead and ask them. Very close guys to you. Ask them how it went, bud.
He then made a point of saying how Nate's brother Nick is probably suffering from CTE, yet he'd defend him.
This isn't real. And the difference between you and I, Nate, a million fucking things, don't get me started. But the difference between you and I, if you start crying because your brother who has CTE, the difference between you and I is if your brother, and Shane's a brother to me, if your actual fucking brother came out and started getting emotional, or if you started coming out getting emotional about your brother's issues with CT and fighting and all this shit, because we know he has his issues, I would support you, even though you've been a dick to me the entire time. That's what I do. That's what men do, bud. I wouldn't bash you. And this whole narrative, your entire narrative, oh, fuck the man. Bud, you've been paid more than 99% of the fighters. Cut the bullshit. You're no different than Kobe Compton, this MAGA shit.
And then Brendan dropped perhaps the best one-liner of the entire rant.
What are you gonna do, Nate? What are you gonna do? Volume punch me, motherfucker?
And funnily enough, the fans actually liked it. For the past few years, MMA fans called Schaub cringe, irrelevant, and have laughed at him whenever he'd say the wrong thing. But even against a fan favorite like Nate Diaz, people really enjoyed this alter ego of Brendan Schaub. It was so unexpected that Ariel Helwani was calling it a heel turn, like something we'd seen the WWE.
It was very mixed. I saw some of the reaction. On the one hand, it's like, hey, are we witnessing the babyface turn of one Brendan Schaub? And then a lot of other people said, like, nah, Nate would mess you up. You know, Nate is one of the most beloved and popular fighters in the history of fighting, period. And so this is getting really interesting. I have not seen this side of Brendan Schaub before. I have not seen him get this fired up and lay down a challenge like this and make these kinds of threats.
Because when you think about it, Schaub has made a life for himself outside of his UFC career. He could easily remind everyone at every opportunity that he was a top 10 UFC heavyweight, super athletic, with really good jiu-jitsu that once upon a time knocked out the legendary Mirko Cro Cop, but he rarely does. Size matters in a fight, and many people are convinced that Schaub would destroy Nate Diaz if the two did ever face off.
As the graphic shows, Nate Diaz, I think his heaviest weigh-in was about 181 or something like that. Schaub's lightest was 245. Massive weight difference. Generally in fighting, if the guy is taller and heavier than you, he's gonna win. I know there's some exceptions to that rule in Pride, and yeah, Schaub a decorated black belt, so I could imagine that would be a very difficult task for Nate Diaz if they were to rumble.
So that poses the question, will Brendan Schaub and Nate Diaz ever fight, or is this all just online drama? Well, an MMA fight is incredibly unlikely for a number of reasons. Firstly, there's a significant size difference between the two men. Nate Diaz's walk-around weight is around 180 pounds, maybe a little more, whereas Schaub regularly weighed in at around 245 pounds, so it's going to be extremely difficult to get a fight like that sanctioned. Then, Schaub just isn't interested in returning to MMA, and he's had some outlandish offers over the years, but has always declined.
Let's continue some more great matchmaking.
That's what I'm saying, bro.
I heard you're making your debut on my promotion.
Yes!
Who you want,
Yes!
bro? Who you want, man?
Yes!
I got my matchmaker right there.
Yes.
Who you want? I'll go
Probably
get him,
me,
bro.
probably me. We'll just
Bare
go around.
knuckle. Who do you want, man?
Bro.
Come on, if you had to.
I don't know if bare knuckles for me.
And I'm like, bare knuckle MMA, man? Like, yeah. And, you know, I was like, oh, man, you don't have enough money. Like, there's no way. And he goes, well, give us a number. I gave him a outlandish number. And he was like, dead serious. Just look at me and he goes, okay. And I'm like, what? He's like, okay. And I was, for a second, I'm like, well, shit, maybe I'll just hit the road now. I'll get some road work in now. Let's get going. That's an insane amount of money. And I just can't force myself to do it, man. I just get at 41, you know, my kids, like I can't take another blow to the head, man. You know, I'm good. I'm good. I don't need to be, you know, Elon Musk or Cowboy Cerrone rich. I'm good, man. I'm good where I'm at.
For Brendan, he has a family, kids, and doesn't want to risk his health in a fight because he can make money elsewhere. But a grappling match, now that has some actual potential.
If you're doing this because you fancy yourself a fisticuffs, if you fancy yourself, you want to actually grapple me, I'm not hard to get a hold of. Pull the fuck up. And you can show up with all your boys, do all that stuff. But what a real man will do is pull up one-on-one. I don't have a posse. I don't need one, bud. I'll drop my kid off at fucking practice, roll over, twist your fucking neck off, and then pick him up just in time unscathed with a Diet Coke.
I think this could do massive numbers. Like if I'm Craig Jones, if I'm Polaris, if I'm the Fight Pass Invitational, if I'm Abu Dhabi, I'm trying to make this happen, right? I mean, could you imagine the buildup? Could you imagine the buzz? By the way, in case you're wondering, shout out to Antoine for the poll. If this grappling match actually happens, who wins according to the poll? Thumbs up to the chat. Brendan Schaub, 37%. Nathan Diaz, 29%. Comedy, 34%.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant.
And even Craig Jones, who holds his own grappling event, seems on board.
Are people hitting you up? I want to be a part of it. I saw someone say to me, book Brendan Schaub versus Nate Diaz at the next one. I don't know if you saw that back and forth. Brendan Schaub challenged him to a grappling match last week. Did you see that?
I'm interested, but only if you commentate that grappling match.
Yeah, sign me up. I'm in. I'm in. If you make that match happen, I'm in.
Honestly, anything entertaining enough like that would be amazing. But Nate Diaz would probably physically attack him before we got to the grappling stage.
Nate Diaz is 39, while Brendan Schaub is only 41. And of course, Schaub has a significant size advantage, but you'd argue Diaz is a more skilled grappler who has been way more active, so it makes for an interesting matchup, at least on paper. Make no mistake, if this incredibly unlikely matchup was to happen, it would surely do pretty well in terms of viewership. So while Brendan Schaub and Nate Diaz might not throw hands, unless Diaz and his crew runs up on Schaub, a grappling match has a real chance of happening. They'd both make a lot of money, not risk their health, and it keeps them both relevant, so why not? And at the very least, us MMA fans will be treated to some hilarious build-up between two former UFC fighters who couldn't be further apart. Speaking of fighters who fans can't make their mind up about, check out our previous video on how Ilia Topuria became a hated fighter by complete accident. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.